Well, you will have heard of the singing policeman, but have you ever heard of the singing doorman? Well, that was me about 13 years ago now over in Swalwell, in Gateshead. A so-called mate of mine at the time known as Squeaky because of his camp voice, and his wife had just got a pub over the river in Swalwell at the bottom of Wickenham Bank called The Poacher. I suppose quite an apt name for Mark Squeaky Gibson. He was, before he got to the bar, an on-and-off salesman selling fax machines and photocopiers, and just about a full-time con man and alcoholic. The number of people he would sell equipment to and give them a better deal for cash, and then mysteriously the stuff would never arrive, was unreal. A real slimy, conning, robbing bastard this kid was, who used to drink lager and vodka, and lots of it, for breakfast. How the bloody hell he never got done for drink driving, I'll really never know. Anyway, I was surprised when he announced that he'd got a bar. In fact, I was shocked. Who in their right mind would let this kid take over a pub? I think, to be fair, it was more his wife than him. I felt sorry for her. She was a grafter, not a thief like Squeaky, and the amount of shit she had to put up with because of him just wasn't on. Not long later, there was a celebration when they got divorced. It was a decent-sized bar with a large conservatory set on the back where they would serve food, a smaller back bar and a large bar at the front. When they first took over, they had bits of bother, but nothing too bad. But loads of complaints that they no longer had karaoke on the weekends. Well, in those days I used to be out a lot and was a bit of a karaoke freak. In fact, I used to cover for a mate and run the karaoke sometimes at the Alnwick Castle in North Shields. The Alnwick was my dad's old bar, but was at the time being run by an old bloke called Eddie, a notoriously dodgy little fucker that would have your eyes out and come back for the sockets if he could, and who was colloquially known to the regulars as Frog Eyes, due to his sunken in, yet popping out eyes that did actually make him resemble a frog. When Frog Eyes first took over, true to form, he was quite difficult to get any money out of, if you were owed it, and my mate Pip jacked the karaoke in. Well, old Frog Eyes bought in his own karaoke gear and tried to run it himself, which was fucking painful due to the fact that he couldn't sing for toffee. In fact, he thought he sung like Sinatra, but he sounded like a couple of screaming cats fighting in a back lane in the middle of the night. But he really truly believed that he was the boyo. In fact, if there was an over-70s category in the X Factor, then this fucker would have been on it. So, somehow along the line, me and one of my oldest mates from back in junior school, and whom I'm still mates with to this day, Scott, took over running it, mainly just for laughs and a beer. Anyway, Squeaky Gibson used to drink in there, and loved the old hokey-cokey karaoke, and the way that we did it. To be fair-minded, we were fucking good. We had everyone having a cracking laugh, which, if you ask me, that's what it's all about. The way we ran these karaoke shows was for a laugh. If you got someone up to sing who strutted up and thought they were fucking Elvis, and some kind of local star just because they could sing a little bit, we made it sound like a bag of saggy old shite. A few twists of the knobs and presses on the buttons of the mixer, and job done. But on the other hand, when people were crap but just wanted to do it for a laugh, then we tried our very best to work some magic and make them sound better. Anyway, that soon went south when Eddie upset all the locals and didn't pay his bills. So me and Scott, along with Tony, my other mate, who also happened to be Eddie's son, more or less took over the bar for the last couple of weeks before it was closed down, and ran it like our own private nightclub. Opening on Friday morning, we didn't close and ran straight through all day and all night, losing all track of time, taking advantage of not paying for any beer and drinking all night. Before we knew it was Saturday morning, then Sunday, then Monday. This happened again all week and through the following weekend until the Monday morning when the police closed down the pub. We had made a killing being open non-stop and not locking the doors once in 10 full days. Well, Frog's Eye had promised to pay us, but he didn't bother his arse. Surprise, surprise. But that wasn't too bad, as we just kept the takings and split it between us, which, to be honest, wasn't that much, as we'd been drinking for free for 10 days solid, as had all of our mates, and a good few birds that we'd pulled in Whitley Bay and took down there for a drinking binge, and then a lot more, but that's another story. So the pub was closed down, but we still had shitloads of stock, so we made a deal with the bloke who had a pub just round the corner, the Maggie Bank. The bloke that owned it, who always wanted to appear above reproach but deep down was as slippery as they come, so they called him and his fugly daughter, affectionately known in the area as the Pig in the Wig, had the cellar doors open about 6 a.m. one morning, and me and Tony loaded bottle after bottle of alcohol into my four-wheel drive and delivered it for a nice wedge of cash, which we split with Scott. Early on the Sunday morning, me and Tony went into the bar and filled the huge bottle bins, normally filled with empties, with full bottles, and managed to heave them into the back of my Jeep. We had a few more runs and finally got all the gear shifted. We managed to sell the lot to him, more or less. He took everything apart from the kegs, so, undeterred, we sold the kegs to another local bar, just next to the Tyne Tunnel, called the Duke of Wellington. Oh, and also the payphone, which we'd ripped off the wall, at the same time as the condom machine and the sanitary towel machine, which we emptied. Incidentally, it was the Pig in the Wig that put me on pub watch in North Shields, for bugger all, I may add. I appealed to the committee and was removed from it straight away. Funny fucker she was. She had some sort of fetish about getting dressed up in just a PVC lollipop woman's coat and nothing else. Yuck. Mind, with a face like that, she would have been good for road safety, as kids wouldn't have dared go near a road, never mind cross it. Anyway, I digress. This is where I knew Squeaky Gibson from. We got on well at first, and he asked me to do a karaoke and disco for him at his wedding, and to use my big black convertible Jeep as a wedding car. I charged next to nothing, but another slippery little shit he tried to rip me off and not pay me. So walking through North Shields town centre the week after he got bounced off a bus stop and got a slap from a man that may or may not have been me, and hey presto, when I got home, the cash was through my door. So when he rang me and asked me to do karaoke for him 3 nights a week in Swalwell, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, at first I said no. But at the time I'd just been made redundant from my day job and was working part-time doing the books for a local printing factory. I also, by now, had a baby on the way, my Ben, and money was tight. So I thought, what the hell, and said I'd do it on the promise of payment in cash each night and free beer. So the first week I got there, having never been in the bar before, but it seemed not too bad. It had a couple of doormen on, a couple of proper big lumps who'd worked there for a good while, a couple of canny lads, but they didn't look happy. When I had a chance to speak to them, it turned out that Squeaky had not paid them for the 2 weeks they'd been there. They told me that on Sunday night, when they finished, if they weren't paid, then they were going to take the till. I don't fucking blame you, I told them. And come Sunday, did they get paid? Did they shite? So the next thing, the 2 bouncers were over the bar, one of them taking Squeaky down with a cracking right hook on the way. Basically took the till and the contents, and I can't say I blamed them. I wish to God I had a video camera with me. It was funny as fuck. This was well before the days of smartphones and camera phones and Facebook, but it would have gone viral. In fact, I'm chuckling away to myself right now writing this. So the next week, you guessed it, no bouncers, and I don't blame them. So over the fucking muggings here, luckily, you didn't get that much bother, which is just as well, as I soon found myself running the karaoke and ragging people out at the same time. As soon as I saw something from the corner of the bar, I would whack the longest song I had on, hurdle the DJ booth and multitasked as a bouncer. In fact, after a while I soon became famous for switching people's requests to the Don McLean lengthy classic American Pie, A classic maybe, but stupidly long song that suited my needs perfectly. I soon got used to this, and it wasn't a bad bar, to be honest. I even arranged a stag night there for my mate, and on Sunday nights used to often take Dave, my father-in-law at the time, over with me and buy him a few beers. He came over for the lad's stag night, and it was a funny old night. I had booked him a roly-polygram and had arranged to meet her outside the bar at 9 p.m. So as I sneaked out, followed by a couple of lads to wait for her to turn up, and was taking the piss out of the lads, saying to them, "I bet your lass or one of your exes turns up." Then up pulls a car, and out of the back she came. And if you'd seen my face when I heard her shouting, Stu, I didn't know it was you." Well, the two lads just pissed themselves laughing as Sue comes over to me, hugging me and kissing me. Sue, bit of a legend in North Shields, and regular at the time in the Armwick. I had known her for years, a big-hearted, very kind woman that never seemed to speak ill of anyone, and the same to this day. She later went on to be in the program Geordie Shore, on one episode with a complete Bell's Ends who seemed to think they're typical Geordies, bunch of complete fucking wankers. Anyway, it was a cracking night, and there were a few people there from where I had previously worked on a day job. Sage, where I was a network support technician. Anyway, we were locking up and everyone had gone. Me and Dave were sitting having a pint, and the mortal mess that was my mate at the time, Harry Mann, was knocking at the door with two lads who I didn't know, but were at the stag night. I opened up, and he said, "I just want to see you for a minute, mate." Drunk out of his skull, he staggers in and starts saying he had a great night and starts hugging me. Then out of nowhere the little bastard bites me on the side of my neck, drawing blood. So quick as a flash, me being sober as well, I dropped him, boom, crack, straight to his jaw, which just felled him where he stood. Unfortunately, I thought for me at the time, as it was for him when he went down, I heard crack, and that was the sound of his head smashing off the side of the stone fireplace. You could hear the silence then, as I think everyone in the room was thinking the same thing as me. He's going in a coffin, and I was going to jail. But thank goodness he came round after about a minute and didn't have any lasting damage. As soon as he came round, I stood him up and slung him out where his two big daft mates were standing, who started all verbal, and on they went. And to be honest, they were never going to do anything, you know the kind. All the gear but no idea. Anyway, after listening to their slaver for a few minutes, I turned round and said, "Look, lads, you're boring me now. Do yourself a favour, and off you fuck." And they did, which made me laugh as I shut the doors. A few weeks after this, Squeaky Gibson turned up at my front door and said that he'd split up with the missus and wasn't in the pub any longer. He blamed her, but I was sceptical, and when I went to work on the Friday and spoke to his missus, she told me he'd been having it away with some real skank from the bar and hadn't paid a single bill since they went into the bar. The non-payment of bills, well, that didn't surprise me one little bit. But screwing this skank did surprise me, as he was always pissed. I later found out that he was an alcoholic and didn't seem to have the energy to pull a pint, never mind shag some skank. Anyway, I carried on working there for a while, but my nights were cut and it was time for a change, to be honest. I liked working the door properly, not this karaoke doorman shite. So I started to look around for a new place. When I think about what happened next in hindsight, I must have been stupid, but hey, these things happen. Guess who I went to work for next? Yep, you guessed it, Squeaky Gibson, the alcoholic who didn't pay his bills. God only knows how he managed to get a bar himself. The Wagon Way at Forest Hall, my old stomping ground from when I used to be the manager of the Musketeer years before. The only problem was, it was the same deal. Karaoke, door. I wasn't too keen, but needed a change, and well, to be honest, it was the easiest work I've ever done. The wagon was a fucking rough bar, but the locals sort of kept themselves in check, so I didn't have to chuck anyone out. On my first night up there, I was surprised when I walked in to see who was standing behind the bar. A bloke known in North Shields as Dangerous Brian. I'd known him for a few years and even worked a door with him once. I asked him why he was there. He said he was helping Squeaky get set up. I thought no more of it at the time. He was an okay kind of bloke at times, but a real Walter Mitty type character, who'd been there and done it all. So he said, another one of these ex-Royal Marines. Yeah, right. It turned out sometime later that Squeaky didn't want him there, but he just moved in and refused to leave. Ha ha! What a complete cowardly little bastard Squeaky was. As time moved on, Squeaky started seeing my wife at the times, mate, a lass called Sam. Well, they suited each other down to the ground. I have never in my life met anyone with as many issues as Sam. This lass was seriously fucked in the head. Every time she had a drink, she would kick off and start to cry about the brother that had died in a car accident about 10 or more years previously. A funny-looking lass, a little fat, dwarfy-looking ugly cunt of a thing with hair like a gollywog. A real little, fugly little munter who'd been engaged to some bloke a few years before, and they'd bought a house together. Well, anyway, he must have went to Specsavers one day and realised just what an ugly little umpa-lumpa he'd saddled himself with, and he started shagging his ex, and only went and got her pregnant and fucked Sam off. I wish I'd seen that. Well, maybe because of this, or maybe because she knew what she looked like. She was just so desperate for a man. Any man would do. In fact, most of my mates had mercy fucked her when they were completely rat-assed. They all regretted it and never did it more than once. So you guessed it, she ended up with Squeaky, who was also shagging a slag from behind the bar and some skank that used to turn up every now and again. Well, after about 3 weeks, and don't forget, he was still married, and he only went and proposed to her, she accepted, and off he went to Argus for the cheapest fake engagement ring he could find. The week after, I had a night off, and me and Nicky, my wife, and Squeaky and Sam, the umpa-lump, went for a drink to celebrate and ended up back at the wagon after time. The four of us were sitting having a drink, and Dangerous Brian was fannying around behind the bar, and I think, to be honest, he felt left out, as all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I heard smash, and a pint glass that he'd just thrown smashed very close to Nicky. Well, his face said it all, as I jumped up and ran at him behind the bar. Anyway, Dangerous Brian had epilepsy, and was prone to having fits, faking fits, or both. We were never quite sure. It wouldn't have been so bad if it had nearly hit me, but I kicked off big time as it nearly hit Nicky, as he ran through the hatch, out of the other side of the bar. I was shouting, "Come on, then see how you like it, you fucking wanker," and started pelting pint glasses at him. And his reaction? Yep, you guessed it. He had a fit. Rolling around on the floor, frothing at the mouth. I was pretty sure he was putting it on, but wasn't sure. I remember thinking I should dump him in the bath with some washing powder and some washing to save using the washer. I had a feeling he was faking it, but still not sure. So I did what all good first aid trained people would do in this situation. Kicked the cunt into the corner of the bar and left him there. Fake or fit, I didn't really give a fuck after what he'd just done. Well, the next Friday night when I got there, the pub was surrounded by police, and all of the punters were coming out of the fire exits. Strange, I thought, so I went in and the bar was full of coppers. By all accounts, Dangerous Brian was mortal and had been playing pool with two locals that were a bit handy. Some argument started, and Brian started playing the big man and smashed one of them in the face. So they both basically smashed 7 kinds of shit out of him with pool cues and knocked him out. And guess what happened? When he came round, he rang the police and then had a fit. I couldn't help but laugh, as somebody had stuffed a beer mat in his gob and shoved him in the corner and just left him. So when I walked in and found out what had happened, Squeaky told me, and I said, "Where's Dangerous Brian then?" "Over there," he says, and points in the corner. And there he was, lying there on his back, with foam round his mouth and a beer mat between his teeth, unconscious. Yeah, right. Well, that was the beginning of the end. Police were checking up on the bar, and it turned out that Squeaky didn't have a license to open the pub. Not just that night. It turned out he had never, ever had a license. In fact, he hadn't even applied for one. What a complete mug. So the police shut the pub down, and quick as a flash, I picked up his bunch of keys that he would always leave lying around and ran to the safe. Took a few £100 out for wages that I wouldn't get from this week and the week after, and even left him an IOU note. Shut the cafe, chucked the keys at him, and fucked off for a pint. He was booted out of the pub next day by the bailiffs, and the pub never opened again. It has since been knocked down. So remember, if you have a decent pub that you want totally fucked, then Squeaky's your man. If you can find him. He just vanished after that. Oh, and the little fat Umpa-Lumpa? What happened to her, I hear you ask? Well, she found out about the skanks he was slipping into and dumped him. But that only lasted a day. They got back together, and then, when he just vanished, she cried and whinged on for weeks. No fucking change there. Then, and went on to be so desperate for a bloke that she let anyone who had a drink and or drugs inside him to fuck her. Trust me, I don't know anyone who could do this horrible fucker sober. And Dangerous Brian? Well, he seemed to disappear out of the area for a while, and then turned up again for a while, and then who knows. Personally, I couldn't give a fuck. I never ever forgave him for the pint glass incident.